Think like a calm mind. 8 mental habits of emotionally strong people. Strong minds don't panic faster, they pause longer. Introduction. You've probably noticed it. Some people seem unshakable. Not because nothing bothers them, but because when something does, they don't fall apart. They don't spiral. They don't catastrophize. They don't lose themselves in the reaction. They pause. They breathe. They respond instead of react. And you've probably wondered, how do they do that? This book is the answer, not a vague answer. A specific one. These people think differently. They've built mental habits that most people don't even know are possible. Habits that create space between what happens and how they respond. Habits that turn emotional chaos into emotional clarity. This is not about suppressing emotions. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's not about becoming cold or detached. It's about building a mind that can hold emotion without being controlled by it. A mind that can feel deeply without drowning. A mind that stays steady even when life doesn't. Emotional strength is not about never feeling upset. It's about how quickly you return to center. How much space you can create between the trigger and the response. How you relate to your thoughts instead of just believing them. And all of that is trainable. Through habits, small, specific mental habits that shift how you process the world. In this book, you'll learn 8 of them. Not theories, not concepts, actual practices you can use today. Right now, you'll learn why your mind feels so noisy. What creates the space between trigger and response. How to pause before reacting. How to name emotions without becoming them. How to question the stories your mind tells. How to think in facts instead of fears. You'll learn how to shorten your recovery time after something hard. How to regulate your body first. How to protect your mental inputs. How to build inner safety daily. And you'll get a 5-minute reset routine you can use anytime. Plus a framework for becoming unshakable without becoming hard. This is not about perfection. You will still get triggered. You will still feel overwhelmed. You will still have moments where you react instead of respond. But those moments will be shorter, less intense, less consuming, because you'll have the habits, the mental structure, the tools. Strong minds don't panic faster, they pause longer. And you're about to learn how. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why your mind feels so noisy. Your mind is loud, constantly. Thoughts on top of thoughts, worries, replays, predictions, judgments, an endless stream of mental chatter that never fully stops. And that noise is exhausting. It makes it hard to focus, hard to relax, hard to feel present. You've probably tried to quiet it, to meditate, to think positive, to distract yourself, and maybe those things help temporarily, but the noise always comes back. Here's why. Your mind is designed to scan for threats, to problem solve, to keep you safe. And in the modern world, where actual physical threats are rare, your mind scans for emotional and social threats instead. What if they judge me? What if I fail? What if I said the wrong thing? What if this goes badly? Your mind is trying to protect you, but it's overactive. It's treating every uncertainty like a danger, every possibility like a threat. The noise is not a flaw, it's a feature. Your mind is doing its job. It's just doing too much of it. And the reason it does too much is because you haven't trained it to discern, to differentiate between real danger and imagined danger. between useful thoughts and mental loops. So it treats everything as urgent, everything as important, everything as something you need to think about right now. Another reason your mind feels noisy, you're not processing. You're accumulating. Every experience, every emotion, every unresolved moment gets stored. And if you don't process it, if you don't let it complete, it sits in your system, creating background noise, creating tension, creating mental clutter. Most people don't realize this. They think the noise is just how their mind is. They think it's normal, inevitable. But it's not. The noise can quiet, not by forcing it, but by changing how you relate to it, by training your mind to pause, to discern, to process instead of accumulate, by building the habits that create space instead of chaos. The noise is not the problem. The problem is not knowing how to work with it, how to let some thoughts pass, how to engage with others, how to create moments of stillness even when the noise is there. And that's what this book will teach you. Not how to silence your mind, but how to think like a calm mind, even when the noise is present. Chapter 2. The space between trigger and response. There's a moment, a tiny moment, between something happening and you reacting to it. Most people don't notice this moment. They go straight from trigger to response. Something happens, they react. Instantly, automatically. Someone says something. They snap back. They feel criticized. They defend. They shut down. They receive bad news. They panic. They spiral. They catastrophize. The trigger and the response feel like one thing. Immediate, inevitable. But they're not. There is space between them, a gap, a moment where choice exists. And emotionally strong people have learned to find that space, to widen it, to use it. This space is where everything changes, because in that space, you're not just reacting, you're choosing. You're deciding how to respond instead of letting the reaction happen automatically. And that choice, that fraction of a second where you pause, is what separates emotional chaos from emotional strength. The space doesn't exist naturally. You have to create it. You have to train yourself to notice the moment before the reaction, to catch yourself before you speak, before you act, before you spiral. And you do that through awareness, through noticing the trigger, through recognizing something just happened. I'm about to react, but I don't have to. Not yet. This is not suppression. You're not pushing down the reaction. You're not pretending you don't feel it. You're just pausing, creating a beat, a breath, a moment where you can see the trigger for what it is, and choose your response instead of defaulting to the automatic one. In that space, you can ask, is this reaction useful? Is it proportionate? Is this who I want to be in this moment? And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the reaction is appropriate, and you let it happen. But often the answer is no. And in that space, you can choose something different, something calmer, something more aligned with who you want to be. The space between trigger and response is the foundation of all the other habits. Because without space, there's no choice. There's no room to name the emotion, to question the thought, to regulate the body. It all starts with the space, and the space starts with awareness. So the first step is noticing the moment before the reaction, noticing the trigger, noticing the impulse, and then pausing, just for a breath, just long enough to remember you have a choice. Chapter 3. Habit 1. Pause before reacting. The first habit is simple. Pause before you react. Not forever, not dramatically, just for a moment, a breath, a beat. When something happens, when someone says something that bothers you, when you receive bad news, when you feel triggered, your instinct is to respond immediately, to defend, to explain, to react. But immediate responses are almost always reactive. They come from the emotional part of your brain, the part that's trying to protect you, the part that doesn't have time to think clearly. When you pause, you give the thinking part of your brain time to catch up, time to consider, time to choose, and that changes everything. Here's how you practice this. The next time you feel the urge to react, count to 3 before you respond, silently. In your head, 1, 2, 3. It's not long. It's barely noticeable, but it's long enough to shift you from reactive to responsive. During those 3 seconds, you breathe. You notice what you're feeling. You ask, what do I actually want to say here? What response am I about to have? Is that the response I want? And then you respond intentionally. This doesn't mean you never react emotionally. Sometimes emotion is appropriate. Sometimes you need to express frustration or disagreement or hurt. But when you pause first, you're expressing it intentionally. You're choosing it. You're not just being hijacked by it. The pause also gives the other person space. When you don't react immediately, when you take a moment, it signals that you're thinking, that you're not just firing back, that you're considering, and that often de-escalates. It creates room for actual conversation instead of just reaction. You can also pause internally when you have a thought that makes you anxious. When your mind starts spiraling, pause. Don't follow the thought immediately. Don't engage with it. Just pause. And in that pause, ask, is this thought useful? Is it true? Do I need to think about this right now? Often the answer is no, and you can let it pass. Pausing is the most accessible habit. You can do it anywhere, anytime, in any situation. It doesn't require preparation. It doesn't require perfect conditions. You just stop for a breath, and in that breath you reclaim your choice. Practice this today, in small moments. When someone asks you a question, when you read something that irritates you, when you feel an impulse to react. Pause, count to 3, and then respond. And notice how different it feels, how much more grounded, how much more intentional. Chapter 4. Habit 2. Name the emotion, don't become it. When you feel an emotion, your instinct is to become it, to be consumed by it, to let it take over your entire experience. You're not just feeling angry, you are anger. You're not just feeling anxious, you are anxiety. And when you become the emotion, you lose perspective, you lose the ability to see clearly. You're inside it, and it's running you. The second habit is this: name the emotion without becoming it. You create distance, separation. You acknowledge the feeling without identifying as the feeling. Here's how it works. When you notice an emotion rising, you name it, out loud or silently. I'm feeling angry. Not I am angry, but I'm feeling angry. That subtle shift changes everything. When you say I am angry, you're collapsing yourself into the emotion. You are the anger. There's no space between you and it. But when you say I'm feeling angry, you're observing the emotion. You're separate from it. You're the one noticing the anger, not the anger itself. This is called cognitive distancing, and it's one of the most powerful tools for emotional regulation. Because when you create distance, you create choice. You can feel the anger without acting from it. You can notice the anxiety without being controlled by it. You can also get more specific with the naming. Instead of just "I'm feeling bad," identify the exact emotion. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling disappointed. I'm feeling overwhelmed. The more specific you are, the more clarity you have, and clarity reduces the intensity. Because vague emotions feel bigger, scarier, more consuming, but when you name them specifically, they become manageable. Just one emotion, among many, temporary, passing. Naming also helps you understand yourself. You start to notice patterns. I always feel anxious in this situation. I feel frustrated when I'm tired. I feel overwhelmed when I have too many choices. And when you know your patterns, you can work with them. You can prepare. You can regulate before the emotion takes over. This habit takes practice, because the instinct is to merge with the emotion, to let it flood you, to become it. But every time you pause and name it instead, you're building the muscle of observation, of distance, of emotional awareness. So the next time you feel something strong, stop, notice it, and name it. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling angry. And then breathe. And notice you're still here. The emotion is present, but it's not all of you. You are the one observing it. And that makes all the difference. Chapter 5. Habit 3. Question the story in your head. Your mind tells stories, constantly. Stories about what happened, what it means, what will happen next. And most of the time, you believe those stories without questioning, without checking if they're true. Someone doesn't text back. Your mind tells a story. They're upset with me. I did something wrong. You make a mistake at work. Your mind tells a story. I'm incompetent. Everyone thinks I'm failing. Someone gives you feedback. Your mind tells a story. They don't respect me. They think I'm not good enough. These stories feel true. They feel like facts. But they're not. They're interpretations, assumptions, projections. And emotionally strong people know this. They don't just believe the story. They question it. The third habit is this: question the story your mind is telling. Not to dismiss it, not to pretend it's not there, but to examine it, to see if it's actually true, or if it's just one possible interpretation among many. Here's how you do it. When your mind tells a story, when you notice yourself believing a narrative, pause and ask, is this definitely true? Or is this just one possible explanation? Someone doesn't text back. Instead of believing they're upset, you question, is that definitely true? Or could they just be busy? Could they have not seen the message? Could this have nothing to do with me? You make a mistake. Instead of believing you're incompetent, you question, is that true? Or did I just make one mistake? Do I have evidence that I'm failing? Or is this my mind catastrophizing? Questioning doesn't mean denying. If someone is actually upset, if you did actually mess up, you acknowledge that. But most of the time, the story is bigger than reality, more dramatic, more catastrophic. And questioning brings you back to what's actually happening instead of what you fear is happening. Another question to ask: what evidence do I have for this story? Your mind might say they don't like me. And you ask, what evidence do I have for that? Often there's no real evidence, just a feeling, a fear, an assumption. And when you see that there's no evidence, the story loses power. You can also ask, what's another way to interpret this? Your mind gives you one story, but there are always others. And when you consider other possibilities, you realize your first interpretation isn't the only truth. It's just one option. Questioning the story is not about toxic positivity. It's not about forcing yourself to think everything is fine. It's about accuracy, about seeing reality more clearly, about not letting your mind's automatic interpretations dictate your emotional state. Practice this. The next time your mind tells a dramatic story, pause and question it. Is this definitely true? What evidence do I have? What else could this mean? And notice how the story softens, how the emotion attached to it lessens, how you return to what's actually happening instead of what you fear. Chapter 6. Habit 4. Think in facts, not fears. Fear thinks in extremes, in absolutes. In worst-case scenarios, this will definitely go wrong. Everyone will judge me. I'll never recover from this. And when you think in fears, you're not thinking clearly. You're catastrophizing. You're predicting disaster. You're living in imagined futures that haven't happened and probably won't. The fourth habit is this: think in facts, not fears. You separate what's actually happening from what you're afraid might happen. You ground yourself in reality instead of spiraling in possibility. Here's how. When you notice fear-based thinking, when your mind goes to worst case, you pause and you ask, what do I actually know? What are the facts? You're anxious about a presentation. Your mind says, I'm going to mess this up. Everyone will think I'm incompetent. You pause and you ask, what do I actually know? The facts: I've prepared. I've done this before. I know the material. I might be nervous, but that doesn't mean I'll fail. The fear is about what might happen. The facts are about what is. And when you focus on the facts, the fear loses its grip, because you're not living in the catastrophe anymore. You're living in the present, in what's real. Another way to do this: break down the fear into specifics. Instead of everything will go wrong, ask, what specifically am I afraid of? Maybe it's I'm afraid I'll forget what I was going to say. And then what's the actual likelihood of that? And if it happens, what will I do? When you make the fear specific, it becomes manageable. It stops being this vague, overwhelming cloud and becomes a concrete possibility you can prepare for. Thinking in facts also means recognizing what you can control and what you can't. You can control your preparation, your effort, your response. You can't control other people's reactions, outcomes, circumstances. And when you focus on what you can control, you stop wasting energy on what you can't. This habit doesn't eliminate fear. Fear will still arise, but it stops running you. You notice the fear, you acknowledge it, and then you bring yourself back to the facts. I'm afraid, and here's what's actually true. Practice this distinction. When your mind goes to worst case, when you start catastrophizing, pause. Ask, what do I actually know? What are the facts? And return to reality. Not to deny the fear, but to ground yourself in what's real instead of what's imagined. Chapter 7. Habit 5. Shorten the recovery time. Emotionally strong people are not people who never get knocked down. They're people who get back up faster. They still have bad days. They still get triggered. They still feel overwhelmed. The difference is they don't stay there as long. The fifth habit is this: shorten your recovery time. You're not trying to never fall. You're trying to recover quicker when you do. Most people, when something goes wrong, when they get upset, when they spiral, stay in it for hours, days, weeks. They replay it. They ruminate. They let it affect everything else. They carry it with them. And that's what drains them, not the initial upset, but the prolonged dwelling. Emotionally strong people feel the upset fully. They don't suppress it, but then they let it complete. They let it move through, and they return to baseline. Here's how you do that. When something happens, when you're upset, you allow yourself to feel it for a specific amount of time, not forever, not indefinitely, but for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever feels right. You feel it fully. You cry if you need to. You vent, you process, and then you make a conscious decision to move forward, not to suppress, but to shift your focus. You ask, what do I need right now to move through this? Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's talking to someone. Maybe it's writing it down. Maybe it's just taking a few deep breaths and choosing to focus on something else. You're not forcing yourself to be okay. You're just choosing not to stay stuck. Another part of shortening recovery is recognizing when you're ruminating. When you're no longer processing, you're just looping. You've thought about it enough. You've felt it enough. And now you're just replaying it, making it worse. And when you notice that, you interrupt, you redirect, you consciously choose to think about something else. Shortening recovery also means not letting one bad moment ruin the whole day. You have a difficult conversation in the morning, and instead of letting that color the next 8 hours, you reset. You take a few minutes, you regulate, and you step into the next moment fresh. Each moment is separate. One bad moment doesn't have to bleed into all the others. This habit takes practice, because the instinct is to hold on to it, to keep thinking about it, to let it consume you. But every time you choose to recover faster, you're training your system, you're building the resilience, the ability to bounce back. So the next time you're upset, feel it fully, and then ask, what do I need to move forward? And choose that consciously. Intentionally. You're not avoiding the emotion. You're just not drowning in it. Chapter 8. Habit 6. Regulate the body first. Your emotions don't just live in your mind. They live in your body. Anxiety is a racing heart. Anger is tension in your jaw. Sadness is heaviness in your chest. And when your body is activated, when it's in fight or flight, your mind can't think clearly. It's reactive, it's defensive, it's curvival Faust. The 6th habit is this: regulate the body first. Before you try to think your way through the emotion, before you try to talk yourself down, you calm your body. And when your body calms, your mind follows. Here's how you do it. When you notice your body is activated, when your heart is racing, when you're tense, when you're jittery, you pause and you breathe slowly, deeply, not just any breath, a specific breath. In through your nose for 4 counts, hold for 4, out through your mouth for 6. That longer exhale signals to your nervous system we're okay. There's no danger. You can stand down. You can also move, gentle movement. A walk, stretching, shaking out your arms. Movement processes the activation. It releases the tension. It gives your body something to do with the energy. Another tool: cold water on your face, ice cubes in your hands, cold air on your skin. Cold interrupts the activation. It jolts your nervous system out of fight or flight. Or pressure, pressing your feet into the ground. squeezing your hands together, hugging yourself tightly. Pressure is grounding. It tells your body you're here. You're safe. You're solid. The key is this: you don't try to think your way out of the emotion while your body is still activated. You regulate the body first. You bring it back to baseline, and then, from that calmer place, you can think clearly. You can respond intentionally. This is why breathing exercises work, why walking helps, why physical grounding is so powerful. Because they're not addressing the thought. They're addressing the physiology, and the physiology is driving the thought. Most people try to calm their mind while their body is still in alarm mode, and it doesn't work because the body is sending signals to the mind: danger, react, protect. But when you calm the body first, when you regulate the nervous system, the mind gets a different signal: safe, calm. You can think now. So the next time you're emotionally activated, don't go straight to your thoughts. Go to your body, breathe, move, ground, regulate, and then from that calmer place address the emotion. Address the thought. Body first, mind second. Chapter 9. Habit 7. Protect your mental inputs. Your mind is influenced by what you consume, what you watch, what you read, who you listen to, what you scroll through. And most people don't realize how much those inputs affect their mental state, their mood, their anxiety, their sense of stability. The 7th habit is this: protect your mental inputs. You become intentional about what you let into your mind. You stop passively consuming. You start curating. Here's why this matters. If you start your day scrolling through bad news, your nervous system activates. You're priming yourself for stress, for threat, for anxiety. If you spend your evenings watching content that makes you feel inadequate, you're feeding that sense of not in co, and it grows. If you're constantly exposed to other people's chaos, their drama, their negativity, it becomes your chaos, your baseline. Emotionally strong people are selective. They don't let everything in. They guard their mental space. They know that what they consume shapes how they feel, and they choose inputs that support their stability instead of undermining it. This doesn't mean you avoid all negative information. It means you're intentional about how much, when, and how you engage with it. You don't check the news first thing in the morning. You don't scroll social media before bed. You don't let every notification pull your attention. You create boundaries. You create space. You also become selective about the people you spend time with. Not in a cold way, but in a protective way. Some people drain you. Some people activate you. Some people leave you feeling worse after every interaction. And you don't have to cut them out completely, but you can limit exposure. You can protect your energy. Another part of protecting your inputs: consuming things that nourish, that calm, that inspire in a grounded way. Not toxic positivity, not forced motivation, but content that makes you feel more centered, more clear, more like yourself. Maybe it's music, maybe it's nature, maybe it's certain books or podcasts, maybe it's conversations with specific people. Whatever it is, you prioritize it, you make space for it, you let it balance out the noise. Protecting your mental inputs also means protecting your internal inputs. The thoughts you allow, the stories you entertain. When your mind starts spiraling, when it goes into catastrophe mode, you interrupt, you redirect, you don't just let it run. You're curating internally too, not suppressing. Just choosing what you engage with and what you let pass. This habit is about being intentional, about recognizing that your mental space is finite, and that what fills it matters. So you guard it, you protect it, you choose carefully. Look at your current inputs. What are you consuming? Who are you spending time with? What's filling your mind? And ask, is this supporting my stability or undermining it? And adjust. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Chapter 10. Habit 8. Build inner safety daily. Most people look for safety outside themselves, in other people's approval, in perfect circumstances, in control. And when those things aren't available, they feel unsafe, unsteady, like they're at the mercy of the world. The 8th habit is this: build inner safety daily. You create a sense of groundedness and security from within, so you're not dependent on external conditions to feel okay. Inner safety is the feeling of I can handle this. I'm okay, even if things are hard. I'm still here. It's not confidence. It's not certainty. It's just a quiet trust in yourself, in your ability to cope, to survive, to move through difficulty. And you build it through small daily practices, not big dramatic gestures, just consistent, grounding actions that remind your system we're okay. One way to build inner safety: keep promises to yourself. When you say you'll do something, even something small, and you do it, you build trust. You prove to yourself that you're reliable, and that reliability creates safety. Another way: create rituals, small repeatable actions that signal to your nervous system this is familiar, this is safe. Maybe it's making your bed every morning. Maybe it's drinking tea in the same chair every evening. Maybe it's a 2-minute breathing practice before you start your day. It doesn't matter what it is. It matters that it's consistent, that it's yours, that it grounds you. You also build inner safety by talking to yourself kindly. When you mess up, when you struggle, when you're scared, most people have a harsh inner voice, critical, demanding, unforgiving. But harsh voices don't create safety. They create more fear. So you practice speaking to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you care about, with compassion, with understanding, with gentleness. This is hard, and I'm doing my best. Another practice: grounding in the present. When you're anxious about the future or stuck in the past, you bring yourself back to now. You notice what's here, right now, in this moment. And usually right now is okay. Maybe not perfect, but okay. And that grounding in the present creates safety, because the present is manageable. It's the imagined future and the replayed past that overwhelm. You also build inner safety by processing emotions instead of suppressing them, by letting yourself feel, by not judging yourself for having feelings. When you allow emotion, when you let it move through, your system learns I can feel things and be okay. Emotions aren't dangerous, and that creates safety. Building inner safety is not a one-time thing. It's daily. It's the small actions that accumulate, that remind your nervous system we're okay. We're grounded. We're here. And over time that becomes your baseline. Not that nothing bothers you, but that you trust yourself to handle what does. So ask yourself, what small daily practice would build safety for me? And start doing it today, not someday, today. Chapter 11. The 5-minute reset routine. You don't need an hour to reset. You don't need a retreat or a spa day or perfect conditions. You just need 5 minutes. 5 minutes to interrupt the spiral, to regulate your nervous system, to return to baseline. Here's the routine. You can do this anytime, anywhere, when you feel overwhelmed, when your mind is loud, when you're emotionally activated. Minute 1, pause and name. Stop what you're doing. Close your eyes or soften your gaze, and name what you're feeling, out loud or silently. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling frustrated. Just name it. Don't judge it. Don't try to change it. Just acknowledge it's there. Minute 2, breathe. Take slow, deep breaths. In through your nose for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out through your mouth for 6. Do this 3 or 4 times. Let your exhales be longer than your inhales. This signals to your nervous system it's okay to calm down. Minute 3, ground in your body. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Feel your hands resting on your lap. Notice physical sensation, temperature, texture, pressure. You're bringing yourself back into your body and out of your head. Minute 4, question the story. What story is your mind telling? What narrative are you believing? And ask, is this definitely true? Or is this just one possibility? Bring yourself back to facts, to what's actually happening, not what you fear is happening. Minute 5, choose one small action. Ask yourself, what's one small thing I can do right now that would help? Maybe it's drinking water. Maybe it's stepping outside for a moment. Maybe it's sending one message. Maybe it's just continuing your day without carrying this weight. Choose one thing and do it. That's it. 5 minutes. You're not solving everything. You're not fixing your life. You're just resetting, interrupting the activation, returning to a place where you can function. And you can do this multiple times a day, whenever you need it, whenever the noise gets too loud, whenever you feel yourself spiraling. 5 minutes, that's all it takes. Chapter 12. Becoming unshakable without being hard. Unshakable doesn't mean unfeeling. It doesn't mean hard. It doesn't mean nothing bothers you. It means you don't collapse when something does. You still feel deeply. You still get upset. You still have bad days. But you don't lose yourself in them. You don't let one moment define the whole day. You don't let one emotion dictate your entire state. You feel it, you process it, and you return. Becoming unshakable is not about building walls. It's about building flexibility, resilience, the ability to bend without breaking. You become unshakable by practicing the habits every day. Not perfectly, but consistently. You pause before reacting. You name the emotion. You question the story. You think in facts. You shorten your recovery time. You regulate your body. You protect your inputs. You build inner safety. And over time, those habits become who you are. Not things you do, who you are. You're not someone who tries to be calm. You're someone who is, not because you suppress, but because you've trained your mind to create space, to discern, to respond instead of react. You also become unshakable by accepting that you won't always be, that some days will knock you down, that some things will still trigger you. And that's okay, because unshakable doesn't mean perfect. It means you know how to return. You're not trying to control everything. You're not trying to eliminate all discomfort. You're just building the capacity to hold more, to process faster, to stay with yourself even when it's hard. And here's what happens when you do that. When you build these habits, when you become unshakable in this way, people feel it. They trust you. They lean on you. because you're steady. Not because you're perfect, but because you're grounded. And you trust yourself, because you've proven over and over that you can handle what comes, that you won't abandon yourself, that you'll stay. This is emotional strength, not the loud, performative kind, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind that just is. Closing. Strong minds don't panic faster, they pause longer. And now you know how. You know why your mind feels noisy. You know about the space between trigger and response. You know the 8 habits that emotionally strong people use. Pause before reacting. Name the emotion. Don't become it. Question the story. Think in facts, not fears. Shorten the recovery time. Regulate the body first. Protect your mental inputs. Build inner safety daily. And you have the 5-minute reset routine, a tool you can use anytime, anywhere. This is not a one-time transformation. This is a practice, a daily practice, a way of thinking, a way of being with yourself. Some days will be easy, some will be hard. Some days you'll remember the habits. Some days you won't, and that's okay, because you're not aiming for perfect. You're aiming for progress, for small, consistent shifts that compound over time. The mind you want, the calm, clear, steady mind is not far away. It's already there, underneath the noise, underneath the reactivity. You're just learning how to access it, how to create the conditions where it can emerge. And every time you pause, every time you name the emotion, every time you question the story, every time you regulate your body, every time you build inner safety, you're training, you're building the mental habits, the structure, the foundation. And one day you'll realize you're not the same person you were. You're calmer, steadier, more grounded, not because nothing bothers you, but because you know how to handle what does. Strong minds don't panic faster, they pause longer. And you're becoming that mind, one habit at a time. Thank you for being here. End of audiobook.